This is my first campaign season.
Oh yeah, well you're running for office too, right?
It's terrible.
Yeah. And listen, it's
wild.
it's not for the weary. You know, like I'm an old school union organizer, right? So I've run a lot of campaigns in my life. Just trying to get workers to join unions. So those can be brutal undertakings as well. You're working 7 days a week, 12, 15 hours, 16, 18, 20 hours a day, whatever it takes to try to make sure you got enough ballots in that box when they open it up. And when they do, you live and die by the ballot box, right? It's a tough reality, but it'll make you a better candidate, even if you come up short this time and the desire is still to be a member of a school board or an elected official somewhere. You'll learn from this campaign, and maybe some mistakes you made here, you won't make the next time out, and just make you a better candidate going forward.
Yeah, I hit a point where I realized, like, man, I got a lot of work to do. Like, I didn't realize, like, the amount of work it takes just to reach, just a small town that I'm in. It takes a lot of work just to reach that many people.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at it, like, let's say there were 5,000 people in your town that are going to vote for, the school board, and you want to make sure you're contacting all 5,000 of those people, right? So how you go about that is the same thing in a workplace. If you're organizing a workplace with 100 workers that are working multiple shifts, right? So you're seeing half the workers on one shift. You're trying to chase them when they go home. The other half comes in. You're trying to chase them when they go home, right? You're trying to. Because once they go to work, like, the conversation stops. And so you're always trying to figure out about how do we communicate with folks. And man, we did all of this before social media, before anybody really even had a cell phone, right? This was all hand-to-hand combat kind of stuff. And having those conversations with people, there's really no difference. There's probably some difference, but I'd like to say there's no difference between a union election and a candidate running for political office.
Yeah, I just scale what I'm doing, like, up to what you guys are doing. It's like, man, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, it's wild. So we're here in where are we? East Brunswick.
This is the
regional office,
Eastern Regional Office of the Eastern Region. I'm the International Vice President, Regional Manager. Matter of fact, I just celebrated my 3rd anniversary here. So November 1st was my 3 years I'm here doing this job. Man, I'm a 42-year member of this union, right? I'm a 2nd-generation laborer, so I'm not, I come from a LiUNA family, and, having this role I remember when I took this role, like, my wife, I was the business manager of the Mason Tennis District Council up in New York City. I had just gotten the role, and I had worked with the business manager of the district council in order to transition into his role. So, a little bit, if you want me to back up a little more for my whole story, I can give you a little bit of my whole story. It's pretty fast. I think it's a fascinating story. So, I joined this union at about 17 years old, and, I go to work out in the field, and, I'm out in the field, I'm working. And my father's a laborer as well. And one day he comes to me, I'm 18 and a half. And he says, he goes, what's your plan? I go, what do you mean, what's my plan? So he gives me this whole story, which I already knew about Hellstrom men serving in the U.S. military all the way through him, through Vietnam. And so he gives me this whole speech, and so I'm like, all right, the next day I go down and I join the United States Navy. So I stayed a whole summer, right? I go on a delayed entry program. I finish working, hanging out, right? I'm about 19, maybe 18 and a half, 19. I go to boot camp. So I serve in the United States Navy for 4 years. I come home. 10 days later, I was back on a union construction site. So I've never looked backwards, right? And so there's some things that happened in New York where the federal government, our international union, and some other things. There was some, organized crime elements that were happening in New York City, right? I'm a New York City guy, right? Been a New York City guy my whole life, and so they trustee our local unions, 10 local unions. They trustee, and they merge them into what's now Local 79. And the international started to think about what organizing would look like in New York City. They had just finished organizing asbestos workers, and the next campaign was going to be demolition workers. So I'm working in the field. By this time, I'm a labor foreman. My father's a general labor foreman. We're working for a company. And you know how it is as a laborer, right? Like back then, the company we're working for probably's got $250 million of work on the books. My wife had our first child, right? So you can tell there's a lot going on. But, as far as the future was concerned, we were probably pretty good. We were going to be steady working for the company that, we were currently working for. And I go to this training for, more of an info session for about 90 minutes. The International's kind of explaining about, what they're going to do and what's organizing look like in the demolition sector in New York City. and I leave. You know, I like to say a couple of months went by. I don't really remember how much time went by, but some time went by, and I got a call to come back for an 8-hour training, like a 1-day, 8-hour training in New York City. And I go to that training, and, you know, there's probably, I want to say it was like 25 people, and it was like a U-shaped table. You know, it was a pretty big room, but it was a U-shaped table. And I kind of remember certain things of that day. Like, I remember where I sat. And where I sat was that, like, on the last seat of the first leg of the U-shaped table. And they said, hey, tell us 3 things, you know, your name, how long you've been in the union, and what do you think you could bring to an organizing drive? And so it gets to me, but I always like to tell people, like, it was all men, so it's like a fishtail, you know, right? One guy's saying something, next guy's saying something, next guy's saying something. So it gets to me, and I just really stood up. I said, hey, you know, even though I had served some time in the military, I said, hey, I got 12 and a half years in the union. I know my contract in and out. I've been a shop steward. I'm a foreman, right? I know this contract in and out. And the only thing I could bring to an organizing drive today is 285 pounds of freight, because I was about 6'3", 285 pounds, right? And go through that training, and man, the next afternoon I get a call at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They say to me, "Hey, we want to offer you a job." Oh yeah, well, what's the job? So we want to hire you for 3 weeks. We're going to pay you 40 hours a week at your rate with your benefits. We're probably going to work you about 70 hours a week to get on this organizing drive. At the end of those 3 weeks, we're going to cut the crew down to 8 people. We're going to hire about 13 up front, and no guarantee that you're going to get hired for the remaining balance of the campaign. And I've been here ever since, man. Like, I've been, you know, literally I got on that campaign. I worked that campaign, brought that campaign to the finish. We organized 1,500 mostly undocumented workers into our union. Still members of our union today, hardworking people, right? Now they're bringing second-generation kids into our union because they're bringing their sons and even some of their daughters into our union. And I got a job. At the end of that organizing drive, I get a job at Local 79 as a business agent. So, man, I become a business agent, right? Who doesn't want to be a business agent? So become a business agent. And then I'd say maybe a year and a half into that, Local 79 decides that it's going to create an organizing department again. And so they say to me, hey, we want you to go in the organizing department. At first, I was a little bit, organizing is really my passion, right? So I'm like, I don't know. Come on, we really want you to go in the organizing department. So I go. And I become the assistant director of organizing in Local 79. And then I would say, like, a couple of years goes by, and I've done some really great things. I mean, I could tell you some really fabulous stories about, you know, fucking 50,000 construction workers, like, taking a day off and protesting in New York City. And I'm in the center of it all, right? Organized it all. One of a few people, but really in the center of that, and some other big stuff that we did. And I'm walking through the Union Hall one day, and I say to an international rep, who's an Eastern Region international rep at the time. He's no longer with us, but I say, hey, man, what's going on? He goes, man, we're getting ready to trustee these garbage locals tomorrow. I'm like, I didn't even know we even had garbage locals, right? I had no idea. I said, well, who are you going to give them to? And he said, well, we're going to give them to so-and-so. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'd give them to that person. And they were like, yeah, right. Who would you give it to? And I'm like, give it to me, man. He's like, yeah, all right. You know what? Be here tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. And so literally the next day at 9 o'clock in the morning is really where they gave me these broken locals. I mean, I'm talking about broken locals, man. Like, you couldn't get Band-Aids out of the welfare fund. People were getting 10-cent wages on a wage increase. It was, you know, really dominated by organized crime. And it was an effort of the International Union to rid our union of that element. And really the choice for me is to either, you know, kind of wrap this up and, you know, turn the charters back into the international because the locals are under trusteeship, and, you know, say to the people around me, this is a dead proposition, or go out and try to make something of it. And man, for 20 years, man, me and a group of people just went out there every day, organized. I mean, with no resources, with a lot of resources, man, we fought, we stood up, we took on everybody. In the first 2 years of running that industrialized local, right, man, I had no idea. It's a multi-billion-dollar business that exists behind the garbage can. Like, you put your garbage cans out in the morning on your curb, the guy comes back in the day, picks them up, you put them back behind the house. But there's a multi-billion-dollar industry where workers are working behind that garbage can, right, all the way to the landfill. And you know, the first 2 years, I would say that independent unions in New York City are something that still exists today, right? They're unaffiliated to the AFL-CIO. They don't belong to a parent organization. Just, you know, just a bunch of people start a union, but they're really there to be the boss's union. And they tried to raid me 20 times, and I beat them every single time. So man, I got involved in union elections, like, man, over and over and over and over and over and over again. So I became a pretty good union organizer. And, you know, look, throughout my career, I was always organizing first, representing people to the best that I could. All the people that worked for me, man, we represented our members from the day we met you to the day we left you. Like, we didn't leave you standing there by yourself. So representation to me is really important. And, you know, along my career, I always stayed connected to our district council in New York City. So I held the president's spot in the district council, the vice president's spot in the district council. I was always an executive board member in our district council. And, you know, the business manager of the district council comes to me like in 2016 and says, hey, you know that thing we've been talking about? We've been talking about this for a long time. I mean, I don't know what thing we've been talking about. So what thing we're talking about? You know, about you coming back to the district council. I'm like, yeah. He goes, we should do that when we get back to New York. Okay. When do you want to do it? Well, in a couple of weeks I want to do it. Wow. All right. So have a conversation with him. It was him starting his own transition out, whether it be a 5-year plan, whatever it was. He was getting a little older, trying to think about what retirement was going to look like for himself. So I turned the local over to one of my trusted allies. Name is Fritz Schneider. Turn him over to make him the business manager local. The executive board, you know, agrees with that move. I move over to the district council. I become really the director of organizing at the district council, kind of like quasi-assistant business manager to the business manager. And at the end of 5 years, he retires. Man, I take over the district council. I think that I'm done. I'm like, this is it, man. This is the whole thing that I've wanted my whole entire career, was to be the business manager of the Mason Tennis District Council. And man, like 20 days into it, Ray Pacino, who was the regional manager here, called me up and he said, hey, what do you think about next level leadership? And I'm like, oh man, first of all, I'm just be honored that you guys would even ask me and consider me. Like, so even if I'm not the guy and you move past me, no, they decided at that moment that I was the guy, and my life changed pretty quickly. And I had to go home that night and tell my wife. I said, hey, you won't believe what happened to me today. Oh, now mind you, like, we're getting ready to talk about retirement. We're getting ready to figure out what our future is. And I said, oh man, you know, they offered me another job, you know, as this regional manager, international vice president. She goes, what'd you say to them? I said, yes. She goes, why? I go, I'm indebted to this union. I honestly, that's the answer to it. I'm just indebted to this union. It's been just so good to me and my family, and the work that I've been able to do, and just see really the power of this union in people's lives, that whatever this union would ask me to do, I would do for it. So that's my story. That's why I'm here.
That's fulfilling.
I mean,
what a fulfilling career you've had.
You know, it's been by hard work, right? And it's not, nobody handed me nothing. Yep. You know, it wasn't that I had a bunch of uncles in the background or people. No, it's really me. I applied myself, and really every opportunity that came my way. And look, I made some mistakes along the way. We all do. We're human beings. I've learned from those mistakes, but made me a better leader. And, you know, I hold people to a standard that I'm the first guy in the door. So if I'm asking you to do something, I'm going to go right there and do it with you. Like, I'm not a guy who's just going to say, go get that done. No, I'm going to show you by example about how you get it done. And yeah, man, it's been a really rewarding career. Yeah, I'm glad I'm here.
You know, you talk about your, the leader you are. I had the opportunity to listen to you kind of let your hair down a little bit at the Rise reunion.
Oh yeah.
Man, and you can motivate some men. That's you have a unique talent for being able to really bring a room together.
Yeah, it's been one of my it's been one of my strong suits. I would not lie about that. You know, I just mentioned a few minutes ago about one of the biggest things I think I've ever done is that there's a movement in New York City amongst building trades construction workers, and it's probably a generation old right now, so you'd have to go a little bit back to a guy that's getting ready to retire out. But if you brought up the word Roy K to that worker, he'd be like, yeah, I was there that day, right? And Roy K was really a collective move, solidarity amongst the building trades, right? Every craft was involved in it. And we were fighting over a $35 million non-union project in New York City. And the project, it grew, the organizing in the project grew so many legs, and it was like so much heat around the project, right? And the idea that this one project was going to be non-union, $35 million, that 50,000 union construction workers took a day off. And I remember that day I was on the stage. I was like one of the lead organizers of it. And man, we go down to, it was like 54th Street and 9th Avenue was the job site. So that morning, man, I was fucking pouring. I mean, like, torrential downpours, and like, man, as an organizer, I'm like, my father was with me that day, and I'm kind of like, man, I don't know if anybody's going to show up today, right? The rain, people cop out. You know how people cop out. Like, it's raining, it's hot, it's snowing, but okay. So I go to 54th and 9th, and Dino Essenplayer was there with me. He was an organizer as well in 79 at the time. And there's nobody at 54th and 9th. I was like, all right, it's a good sign. Let's walk over to the MTA's headquarters on, I want to say 43rd and Madison, I think it was. And sure enough, man, we get down there, and, you can see people hiding out in a cubby hole here, hiding out in a doorway there, because it's still raining. Man, as soon as the rain stopped at around, I want to say 7:30 that morning, workers just started showing up. And before you know it, there were 50,000 union construction workers, like literally commandeering like Madison Avenue, shutting down Midtown Manhattan. There's an iconic picture in the Daily News where the police, the New York City police, try to use an MTA bus to try to open the crowd. And workers just swarmed the bus. And so the bus is like stuck in the crowd. And it was the front page of the Daily News that day. And, I remember the chief, the actual chief of the New York City Police Department. His name was Chief Fox. I'm standing up on the stage. It wasn't really a stage. We used a flatbed truck as the stage, right? So I'm up on top of this flatbed, and grabs me by my pant leg. He goes, "That's it. Tell him it's over." I'm like, "Hey, man, fuck you. You tell him it's over," right? So we jump back in the crowd, and we start telling workers, like, go back to 54th and 9th. And so when we had done that, that's when some shenanigans had happened on the way out. It's like stories about, some workers got in a fight with a police horse, and they punched out the police horse. And, I would say like 50 workers got arrested between 43rd and Madison and 54th and 9th, and whatever the shenanigans were. But when we got back to 54th and 9th, there was 25,000 union construction workers that came back to that job site. And, that contractor actually, he was actually from here in Freehold, New Jersey. His name was Roy Kay. And he ended up signing a contract with the union. He ended up going out of business and stuff like that. But the end result was that he signed a contract with the union, with the whole entire building trades. And, that's probably one of my best stories. I mean, count me in. When I run the Count Me In campaign in 2018 in New York City, it's kind of like a 2.0 Roy Kay moment. That was a pretty good campaign that we ran too. But and I got a few other stories that are really, like, I think, gems of just what worker solidarity really looks like. And when you're witnessing that power, man, you could do almost anything with that power. You can go anywhere. You got a saying about momentum. Like, momentum is to be crass, is a motherfucker to create. And I'm a crass guy, so I try to be plain with people that it's really the hardest thing you're ever going to do is create momentum. But once you create momentum, all you got to do is just move momentum to wherever you want it to go to. But you got to do all the work in the beginning to create the momentum. And people have to understand what it is that they're getting involved in. And once you can give them a sense of what they're getting involved in, they'll continue to show up and fight and be part of that momentum that you're building for that end result that you're all trying to get at the same time.
So are you trying to build anything right now?
Constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think, you think about just think about local elections here, right? Mm-hmm. Just trying to get a community of interest of people that, hey, man, why do we make the decisions that we make? Man, I don't make them by myself. There's a collective that goes on about reaching any decision that I really make, especially if it's a decision that has a magnitude, right, value to it. And when you make political endorsements, there's a magnitude value of that endorsement that you say, hey, is this person the right person that's going to really benefit us, right? Because the only thing I'm concerned about is that how does this person benefit us, right? You could say that I'm an opportunist that way, right? And I don't really care whether they're D's or R's. Who's the best person that's going to benefit us? And when I say benefit us, I mean, who's going to be able to continue to help us put bread and food and shelter and middle-class lifestyle in our pockets, give us that dignity and respect that we all deserve, that we all desire, and have a sense of pride about ourselves, about the things that we're building here with good wages and benefits. You need, and it's a shame that we need politics in order to make that happen, but when you get it right, we prosper by that. And so that's the thing that I'm most concerned with. So when you say, am I still building that constantly. Like right now in New York City, we're trying to fight for what we call the Construction Justice Act. And the Construction Justice Act, it's got mixed feelings, especially amongst the building trades, right? Because we're fighting for a $40 an hour minimum wage. which is under our wage. It's not our wage, right? It's not a collectively bargained wage. It's not the $72 an hour that a building laborer gets in New York City. But what we're fighting against is that non-union workers are getting $20 an hour. And so every time our contractor goes to the table, right, even developers that are friendly to us and say we want to use union labor, when our competition is being able to get that work done for a third, really, probably more than a third of what it is that we get, somehow we got to establish a minimum, right? And so with all the subsidies that developers are getting and tax rebate and all this like public money that they get, you can't apply prevailing wages to it because of the way that the money is distributed, because it's like hodgepodge money. It's federal money, it's state money, it's local money, right? It's like this big, like ugly pot of money that they get all this money from. But we're trying to attach a $40 minimum that for any subsidy that you get over $3 million in the city of New York for construction, building construction, you got to pay every worker a minimum of $40 an hour. So that's solidarity that we've built inside the membership of Local 79, that every member of Local 79 knows that this is not the end result for us. This is about us using our leverage in order to make our environment better, to make us more competitive and give us an edge, so that we're not just competing against $20 an hour bottom of the basement wages, but at least now we're competing against $40 minimums. And that gives us the ability to try to figure out, okay, what else do we need to do in order to try to compete dollar for dollar with people to be able to make sure that our members are still going to work and earning this middle-class lifestyle, wages and benefits that they're getting right now.
Yeah, one of the best parts about starting this podcast for me has been really like digging into like the union thing. And when I started this, I had like not a great understanding of what you guys do here in this office and like all of the background stuff. And the more the more I learn and the more I look into it and the more people I get to talk to, the more I see like how important politics is to I mean, it's almost everything. Going to work is like the easiest part,
right. Look, there's a saying I have that, war is easy, right? Anybody can declare war. It's diplomacy work. That's the hard work. So to your point, that politics is like plays that role of like almost diplomacy at some point, right? Like we got to figure out how we electing people. You'll hear politicians, every single politician will say, hey, I come from a union background. But if you really listen to them, it's generational disconnects that they're coming from, right? They're not union people. Hey, I was working on a job site yesterday and I'm running for Congress tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we run into those people once in a while, not often. Mostly it's people who say, hey, you know what? My father was a union member. My grandfather was a union member. My mom was a union member. Somebody was a union member. They don't quite understand what unions are. They got a big tent, if you would, of people under the tent that they got to try to satisfy. But, I'm on the firm belief that if you do things that benefit us, we can lift up everybody else around us, right? So even on that $40 minimum, getting all those elected officials in New York City on board that this is the right thing to do, that's us using our influence in the equation to lift everybody up. And once we lift everybody up, we're able to lift ourselves up because everybody is benefiting from our presence in their market. Everybody does.
You talk about creating the momentum and, we're sitting here talking about the importance of politics and putting policies into place that benefit, not only us, but the middle class, really.
Sure.
How do you combat with this like social war going on right now? Like, you have the politicians that are endorsed by the union, that are, they're chosen basically just from your own mouth. They're the people that are going to be the best for our union. And you're combating these social issues that are like dog whistle issues.
Yeah.
Things that aren't, they don't affect the everyday person.
They're not bread and butter issues, right?
But the wage of the middle class affects almost every single person.
I agree with that.
So how do you take the people that are so far morally connected to these social issues and make sense of what you're trying to do?
So I'll give you a sense of who I am, right? I'll just tell you who I am. Look, I'm a Jesus-loving man, right? Mm-hmm. From a faith perspective, I'm sold out to Jesus Christ as my Savior. But I'm not allowing that to form my political decisions that I make to keep bread and butter on my table. And I think when I say that is that how we're able to combat that is this right here, having these kinds of moments in a podcast where me and you are just talking straight about it. Our members are getting information from all kinds of different sources. But if they really would just take a step back and say, who controls the sources of information that I'm getting? The right wing controls about 85% of the media that we have access to in this country, from podcasts to TV to movies to everything in between to the publications that we're reading. It's really controlled about 85% of it from the right wing. So people are getting fed right wing propaganda all day long, and then they start believing that these social issues are really the issues that they must contend with, and that their vote is going to resolve those issues. You know what? It may resolve the issue, but it doesn't make you any richer. It doesn't keep you more secure in the middle class. It doesn't give you better benefits. It doesn't give you a stronger retirement. But yet they spend a lot of time on those issues. And I'd like to say that, look, we've done such a good job in representing our members and getting them a wage increase, getting them good benefits, getting them a secure retirement, getting them dignity and respect, right? Getting them power, that they now have the time to pay attention to these social issues. But I would also offer, if our members or any union member across the country was just fighting for their survival, they wouldn't pay 5 minutes of time of their attention on any of these social issues, because the only thing they'd be concerned with is keeping a roof over their head and food on their table and clothes on their children's back, right? And those middle class ideas about how do I stay here in this middle class, that's the only thing that they would be fixated on. And so all these other little social issues that people pay a lot of attention to, you gotta take a step back and say, hey man, does that really add value into my life? And I get it that people are saying, well, I don't want my children exposed to this. Well, you're right. Make sure you're a good parent. Make sure your kids aren't exposed to it, right? There are things that you could be doing in your own household that you don't have to rely upon a politician to do, that we should be doing as just really moms and dads, right? But yet we get fixated on these things, thinking that if we join this tribe, somehow we're not going to be impacted by the ugliness of the tribe, because there's a lot of ugliness on both sides of the aisle. There's a lot of ugliness. So I think it's these kinds of conversations and making sure that we're just getting our voices out there and starting to amplify those voices collectively across the country, whether it be on podcasts, whether it be on news, whether it be in the media, protest, whatever we're doing, we're having a message that I think everybody can gravitate towards, that this union should be personal to you, first of all, if you're a member of this union. Because if you look over your career in this union is looked out for you as you've looked out for it, because you understand that if you put stuff back into the union, you get something out of the union. Right. And I think that that's a proposition that we got to get back to and get our members back to understanding that this union is 122 years old, but you got to understand the history of this whole union to be standing here today and all the things that it had to endure and all of the people that went through that 122-year journey to give us what we got today, because it didn't happen by chance. It happened because we organized. It happened because we stood together. It happened because we had solidarity. We stood up, we fought back, and we didn't buy the bullshit of the other side. Today we're buying the bullshit from the other side.
So I want to kind of introduce something else that could contribute from just my local 172
Sure.
in South Jersey. In 2012, there's a merger with the Atlantic City Building Trades. Prior to and I had to go back to an interview I did, I think like week 5 of this podcast with Jim Koya. He's a retiree. Prior to 2012, he said everyone was so 100% union because the hall was always empty. Like you got laid off by a contractor, you're right back to work right away. So there was almost like a leverage there from the workforce, because and the onus was on the contractors to maintain the worker.
Sure.
Then you introduce 800 guys from Atlantic City Building Trades into 172, which absorbed the local. And all of a sudden now you got 150, 200 guys on the, on the list in the hall. And now there's like this shift in power, right? Where guys had to like ride the fence. Like they had to be like conscious of the contractor and the company they were working with. They had to kind of be a little bit of like company guys because they didn't want to get let go, because they didn't want to be number 151 on the list.
Sure.
So talking to, you, the vice president of the International, who is boasting this March to 1 million, how do you double the size of the membership and keep everyone union without creating an issue like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, right? I think that for every union member that's working out of a union hall, especially in the building trades, a laborers union hall, right? Hey man, you never want to see a list with 100 people, 5 people. You don't want to see nobody out of work, because, anytime somebody's out of work, there's a chance that you also can be out of work temporarily. That's the nature of the business, construction, right? And so I think, you're watching the construction market, though, change, and you're watching it change more for building laborers than you are for heavy highway laborers, right? So in this state here, in New Jersey, and this is one thing about having local power from Trenton on down, is that we have about a 95% market share here for prevailing wage heavy highway work, meaning that the minute that a public dollar comes out and is going to go to work to build a new bridge, a new road, a new tunnel, right, infrastructure, rail, whatever it is, we're going to be on that job, because our contractors are the choice contractors to go after that work. That doesn't mean that there aren't non-union contractors that are still also trying to get into that work, right? And they, look, from time to time, they beat us, right? But that's where our activism together as a union, to go out and fight back against that contractor who somehow, put a low bid in or manipulated the system and is manipulating the prevailing wage scale and is, essentially gaming the system to get that job opportunity. We have to always continuously be defending our market share while we're trying to extend and expand our market share. So this is a lifelong thing of a union. This is not something that you get done once the right time and you're done with it. This is constantly happening from Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday included, that we're always trying to figure out about who are the people in our market that are non-union today that are growing. Like, think for an instant on, was it South Jersey Gas? So South Jersey Gas, I think if I get it right, down here, just recently down in the 172's area with Kylie Construction.
Yep. For
20 years. Yep. 20 years, it was a non-union construction company, right? Non-union utility, using a non-affiliated contractor that wasn't signatory to 172. And certain things happen, and we're able to figure out what our leverage looks like in that equation and have a conversation with stakeholders and other decision makers. And before you know it, we went out and organized 300 or 400 former Kylie workers into Local 172 and now do all the work for South Jersey Gas, right? And so, you know what? That took 20 years, right? So you think about that for a second. It's the persistence of our union that's always out there trying to figure out, how do we leverage those that aren't doing business with us to do business with us? Some of it's by, chance. Some of it's by pressure. Some of it's by organizing. Some of it's by using the tools that are legally accessible to us. And we're going out and making a difference to get those contractors assigned with us, so that we don't have 150 people sitting on the out of work list and we have 0 people. And matter of fact, hopefully we're working towards a place where we have 0 people on the out of work list and we need more workers, because we just have so much work that we got to go out and recruit more workers to come into our union. That's really should be the end goal for all of us.
I think we're at 0 today.
Yeah.
Like we're pretty close to 0 right now. Yeah. I mean, what they just took 400 applications, it closed in 3 minutes.
3 minutes, right? You think about it on a statewide call for apprenticeship, right? It's insane. You know what that is? But that's the promise of a good job, right? And so the promise of a good opportunity. And look, even if you whittle through that 400 people and you got 50% of them that said they really wanted to be construction workers, because not everybody wants to be a construction worker that makes that application, but the process will whittle those guys out or gals out, and we'll end up with the right people. But those right people, I think you said it a couple of minutes ago, is that we want to make our contractors successful. And how we make our contractors successful is by sending out good, skilled, highly productive workers to them, union laborers, so that when the minute that they make that investment on that job site and take that that obligation on to build that, they know that they got a skilled, trained workforce that's going to be able to perform that work. That's their edge, right? That's the thing that separates them from their non-union counterpart, right? Where non-union contractors are cycling through workers all the time, right? Guy shows up, don't show up. I got a good job. I'm going to go to that job every day, right? We know there are no sick days in construction. Like, we know that, right? If you're not feeling well that day, man, make it to work that day, right? If it's raining that day, make it to work that day. If it's hot that day, make it to work. If it's cold that day, make it to work that day, because we know that contractor's success is in our hands. And so every day that we show up and we do that work with skill, professionalism, and the training that we bring to that employer, it makes them successful and profitable. And you know what? That relationship starts to bud, and then it gives them the ability to go out and bid more work, bigger work, better work. And before you know it, man, we've had a whole entire career with the same company, right? That's a great goal to have, right? And if that company goes out of business, this is the great thing about the union, because companies do go out of business, we get to come back to the union hall and take all that skill and ability that we have and put it on the list to go out to the next contractor and go back to work. That's really the beauty of this union.
Yeah. So we'll take a little bit of a left turn here.
Sure.
So this year, I don't know if it was those 3 weeks straight of 110 degrees.
Hot.
But I've noticed personally and among coworkers of all trades, the operators, iron workers, laborers, there seems to be like some type of like a depression blanket, like a depressed blanket over everyone. I don't know if it was like the heat like melted their brains into like
could be
into psychological order. But what does like the leadership do as far as mental health of the workforce?
Yeah, no, I think that's another really good question. Look, we're super, super invested into mental health, right? So you'll hear us talk about there's hope at the hall, right? So so from the international on down, right? This is not just an Eastern region initiative, but from the international on down, understanding about mental health. When you start to understand that the suicide rates amongst construction workers is really higher than almost any other occupation in the United States of America.
Substance abuse too, yeah.
Right? So and it's a compounding effect, right, that happens, whether it be substance abuse, whether it be just mental health issues that people are dealing with. So we want to make sure that people got resources and access to those resources, right? We want to make sure that, even for you, if you went back out on a job site tomorrow, I would say to him, man, make sure you're checking in on your people, man. Make sure you are saying hello and good morning and checking in. And the minute that someone's off, if you see me every day and me and you have casual conversations in the morning, and I walk in one day and you say, hey, Mike, what's going on? And I go, you should let someone else know, hey, man, I just had a conversation with Mike. And usually he's like the most jovial guy, right? He's fun. He's joking around. Today, man, he just like brushed me off. He didn't even give me the time of day. But by you telling someone else, maybe someone else is going to put another set of eyes on somebody, right? And it's complicated. It's not, but every interaction that we're having with somebody, letting them know, hey, man, it's okay not to be okay. Like literally just understanding that alone, that it's okay not to be okay, and creating that environment for our members. And our contractors are on board as well. They don't want anybody on that job site to be suffering from any kind of mental health, issue. And so if things are going on, there are a tremendous amount of resources that our union have. Look, one thing that we're promoting all the time is that 988, that if somebody is in any kind of risk to even thinking about hurting themselves, an act of suicide, man, give 988 a call, man. There are trained, skilled professionals on the other side of that line, man, that could be the lifeline that would save you from taking your own life, right? Because the most tragic thing that could happen is somebody taking their own life, right? So we want to make sure our members got that access. We want to make sure that we're building out programs here in the Eastern region and they're getting ready to come online about, hey, man, there's hope at the hall, right? That there are these programs that if you're suffering from, substance abuse, that's not the end of you, right? That could be the beginning of you, right? The fact that you would actually acknowledge that you have a problem with substance abuse and you have access to benefits. And even if you don't, we have access to getting you the help that you need. All you have to do is say, I have a problem, and then let that process be that process, right? And I understand that that's a complicated process for folks because they got bills to pay and families to look out of and obligations to maintain and sometimes the pride that we all have as men, and we're still a male-dominated industry. We have a lot of women coming into our industry. One of our biggest growth happened to be women. They suffer from mental health as well, right? But making sure that people understand that it's just okay not to be okay. And that if something's going on, let us know what's going on. Let your shop steward know what's going on. Let your business agent know what's going on. Let your employer know what's going on. And we'll make sure that you get the resources that you need to be able to recover from that, whatever's going on. And, look, that's the idea of it. So, the other thing when you bring up like the heat, like think for a second here in New Jersey, New York, right? The East Coast here, we have strong labor rights, right? So like if you needed to take a water break because you were being exhausted by, say, hey man, I'm taking a break. I'm going to go get 5 minutes of shade. I'm going to drink some more water. I'm feeling dehydrated. Nobody's going to really give you too much, pushback on that. Think about in Texas, it's illegal to take a water break in Texas.
It's wild.
Right? Our union is trying to organize in Texas, and I believe that, the road to 1 million members is definitely down in Texas, and we're going to make a difference in Texas. But going into areas like Texas where there's it's illegal to take a water break, come on, man, like we're human beings at the end of the day. Union or non-union, like we're human beings, and people deserve to have water and shade. And I think that, look, the extremities of climate change are really starting to impact us as working people, right? Whether it's the heat, whether it's the frigid cold. I don't even think we're going to get cold no more. Like, I remember snowstorms as a kid. I don't even think we get those snowstorms anymore. Maybe we do once in a while, but we are getting more rain, more humidity, and higher heat. And that means that we're going to have to figure out about how do we protect workers even more, because they're going to have to be enduring all of that. And that's why we're interested in what climate jobs look like. What does it look like to build out that next generation of energy, right? And a combination of it, gas, solar, hydrogen, right? Hydro, whatever that is, we need to figure that out, because who's going to pay the price is working people are going to pay the price first. Rich and powerful will be able to protect themselves from the impact of this environment, but working people are going to get clobbered by it.
So I brought up that Jim Koya story about the merge, right? And I think it applies to the the ability of leadership to kind of keep a hold of its membership, but it also kind of goes towards that mental health discussion too a little bit, right? Where you don't want to take a day off for your daughter's birthday, right? You don't want to you feel like this sense of responsibility to the contractor. It's stuff like that. It's stuff like not being able to, and if you take off, you don't get paid for it.
Sure.
Stuff like that. Stuff like not having a porta john on the job, or having to go in a porta john sometimes.
Yeah, right. Listen,
is there anything through like collective bargaining that can, like, is it too radical of an idea for paid time off?
I mean, no.
Some version of it.
I want to say this in a way that, look, I don't bargain the contract, right? That's not my role to bargain the contract. So I don't want to sit here and say like, hey, yes, right? But I think, thinking from a high level, no, it should not be something that could be so adverse to our employment that we would get a day off, right? The problem, though, with construction, right? And not the problem, but I think one of the issues with construction is that project only lasts a limited amount of time. And so every day that we're able to go out on that job and perform, it's just beneficial to the contract. It's beneficial to our bottom lines too as working people, because we're earning a paycheck. That work-life balance though, right? And that's really the thing I think that you're getting to is like, what's that work-life balance look like? That when I got these personal obligations, do I have the space and the time to go and do them without impacting my ability to still earn a living, right? And I think, look, that's something that's always constantly under development. That's something that constantly people are always trying to figure out. But keep in mind, like, from the beginning of time, and when I say the beginning of time, I mean the beginning of time. And I always like to tell people, like, not so much about time off, but just about, like, look, business is business, right? And we're the workers that go to business, right? And you just made something like, sometimes you feel really obligated to the contract. We can have some obligation to the contractor, right? But there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But, we should be a little bit more obligated to the union than we are the contractor sometimes, right? Because the contractor will take and take and take. But that's why we have unions, right? To make sure that all the taking that they're taking, that they just aren't taking our souls from us at the end of the day, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's a complicated issue, especially in construction. Industrialized workers tend to get more time off, but they also get lower pay, right? So there's a trade-off that they get a lower hourly rate of pay. They may get some more paid time off, where construction workers get less paid time off and they get a higher rate of pay, right? It's a trade-off that has been really underway since really the beginning of time. But that work-life balance is something that I think every union is trying to figure out. How do you strike that work-life balance so that working people got a fair shake here? And that's another level of dignity, and that's another level of respect that we're always fighting for, right? So collective bargaining can help. Solidarity, strength in the union can also help, right? Look, workers, say, hey, if I had really great leadership, I'd get better contracts, right? No, if I had a stronger union membership that was standing behind the leadership, I'd get better union contracts, right? You understand what I'm getting at? So it doesn't work independently of each other. It works collectively with one another. But workers have to understand that that's where the power really originates, right? It's the working people, the members of an organization that are behind the leadership, lockstep with the leadership for that demand, whatever that demand is. They stand a shot at getting the demand because they're united in the pursuit of that particular demand, whichever it is.
So we're talking about like the resources available. So it kind of brings me to this the cost of healthcare, right? So obviously I have friends and family that are in the private sector, and the even like the town of Hammonton. I know like the municipal workers, the healthcare is rising like 30-50%. Is that impacting us like down the road in a little bit? Like, what are we doing anything to combat that?
Look, healthcare in this country is. I've always had a question about healthcare in this country. Mm-hmm. I've always said, like, what does my good health or bad health become a tradable commodity on the stock market, right? Because the Aetnas of the world, the Blues of the world, the Cignas of the world, they're all publicly traded stocks, right? And you got to go back. You got to go back in time, and you got to go. What is it really? The disconnect happened. It's really under the Nixon administration, which really allowed the health industry to go from a not-for-profit status to a for-profit status. And so, think about the last 50, 60 years, right, of our lives is that we've been working in this for-profit environment where, doctors have a demand, hospitals have a demand, right? We have a need, and working people are being caught in the middle because, healthcare should be a basic human right. Mm-hmm. Not a right based on the size of your pocketbook, but it's become a based on the size of your pocketbook proposition, right? So when you hear all these elected officials going, well, national health care would be bad. Well, I don't know about that, right? I would say that there would be pluses and minuses in a national health care environment. There is some form of national health care. Right? Once you go into Social Security, right, Medicare, right, Medicaid, I think Medicare when you retire, national health care essentially, right? You're a retired American, you're getting some form of health insurance on a national level. But the for-profit engine, right, the greed, and look, the thing we're all fighting is greed, and just keep that in mind here. Everything that we're talking about really comes back to what is it essentially are we fighting? We're fighting greed. But the only antidote to greed is us. It's us at the ballot box. It's us on the job site. It's us in our union halls. It's us. That's how we collectively fight back greed, because greed will devour every single one of us. And it's a really greedy environment, the healthcare system in this country. So yes, is it going to impact us? It's constantly impacting us because for every wage increase package that we negotiate, more and more money is going to have to go towards health insurance, right? Because there are promised benefits, or there are benefits that we want to make sure you get as a rank and file member for you and your family. There are potential retiree benefits that are impacted by that, right? So that when you retire, you have access to some kind of health care from the union as a retiree. All that costs money. And so every dime that we negotiate, there's a portion of that that's going back into healthcare. So yeah, as that number continues to go up, it's going to cost us more and more to be able to provide benefits because we're working against a greedy system where we're going to be the antidote to the greed system. So we have to figure that out. And it's another political football that exists in America today. And you'll hear about it, like even right now, you think about with the lockout or the shutdown, what's going on. You hear the Republicans going, well, we have a clean continuing resolution to fund the government. And the Democrats go, yeah, but we're worried about the subsidies for Obamacare, right? The ACA, whatever they wanted to call it, right? They somehow they spun it and they called it Obamacare. It was called the Affordable Care Act. That's the act that was passed during the Obama administration. And really what that was about was trying to figure out about, can we get everybody participating in the healthcare system, the sick, the healthy being the ones they really wanted to participate, have some level of insurance. Mathematically, that would have worked. It would have bent rates down. We would have been paying less for health insurance today if everybody in this country had some level of health insurance. But greed goes, no, don't do that. Because if everybody gets healthy, if everybody has access to health insurance, there's less money for me to take. So instead of charging you $5,000 for a procedure at a hospital, they now get to charge you $15,000 for that same procedure.
It's wild, man. I talked to Jim Williamson. He's like a foot doctor. He's a in-network foot doctor, and he was kind of going over all the insurances that they got to. I mean, I mean, it's hard work just for like an independent doctor.
Oh yeah, man. That's why you're seeing
those
consolidation.
Insurance companies are nuts.
You're seeing consolidation all over the place, right? Like even doctors are figuring out how they consolidate to really maximize their own profits, if you would, right? Because they'll be able to spread the cost of their insurances and what the like. But even if you talk to a doctor today in a network, so networks go out and what they do is that they bargain I want to say a reimbursement schedule with you, the doctor, right? They'll say, here's the reasonable and customary cost based on our book of business. So you have these insurance companies that are now telling doctors, hey, this is what we'll pay you for insurance, right? If you accept this insurance as payment. So those doctors say, yeah, okay, we'll take that insurance. But now I need, you know what, instead of having 10 patients, I need 30 patients in the same practice because this reimbursable is only going to be here. So now I have to spend time with 30 people versus 10 people. So actually the quality of care is going down for us. It's not going up, even though we're paying more for care. So you really start thinking about those imbalances, right? And so like American people have to decide, what kind of system do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a system where we're all benefiting from the system or just the few are benefiting from the system? If you think about it, that before Obamacare happened, two things happened in Obamacare, right? One was that your access to health insurance was directly tied back to your employer. That's number one. That's no longer the case today. Today, you don't have to be employed in order to get access to health insurance, right? You can buy it on the open exchange, the market, whatever it's called. It's pretty significant. It gives you freedom as an employee, just as a working person, that you no longer, let's say you're working for some, I don't know, some bullshit company for your whole entire career, and you're only really staying there because you have access for health insurance, because that's the only way you get health insurance. Well, you no longer have to work for that bullshit company in order to have continued access to health insurance, right? And so, I think, again, people have to figure out what kind of system they want to live in, right? And so, I mean, look, I would say, look, the richer are getting richer in this country, and working people are paying the price for them getting richer, right? The distribution of wealth and the equalization of that it's out of sight. I mean, it's literally out of sight, right? We used to talk about 10 years ago, 1% of the population controlling 93% of all the wealth in this country was concentrated in 1% of the population. Today, it's probably 0.1% controlling 95% of the wealth. So, like, they've gotten richer, the concentration has gone down smaller, and the rest of us are fighting over the crumbs. We're no longer fighting over the pie. We're fighting over the crumbs, man. Every one of us are. If you're not a billionaire or a millionaire today, and even millionaires, think about this for a second. Even somebody who has $1 million worth of net assets is no longer considered a rich person in this country.
Nope.
Think about that for a second.
That puts us way down there.
No, but I'm just saying, right? It's regular working people. We're like, man, like, really? Yeah. Like, if the goal was to make $1 million in your life, yeah, okay, but doesn't even put you in the 1%, man.
Well, the goal was always like 100,000 a year. I want to make 100,000 a year, and now it's like 100,000 a year. Like, what the fuck?
You're barely getting by. No, I hear you. I understand, right? Like, look, I have my son is a third generation laborer, right? He's working out in the field, and he's still living at home, man. He's 27 years old, right? He's still living at home, and we love having him at home, but we also know that, look, he's not married, had no kids, no nothing. He's a single man. But, do you want to put him out there and, hey, Mike, go out and pay $3,000 a month rent? That's what we're looking at, right? So
$4,000 for a mortgage.
Like yeah, that's what we're looking at.
7% interest rate.
Exactly right.
So I think we used to have like a mortgage program, didn't we?
I don't think we have. No, I think, I would say that out of the, if I remember, I don't want to be misquoted here, but at some point in time, out of the benefit funds, you were allowed to take a loan against your annuity fund for a mortgage down payment. Yeah. Right? So, but it was only for the down payment. And maybe it still exists. So, and, look, they've gotten a little bit away from that because people have defaulted over years and they just don't pay, right? So it becomes it's too problematic to go ahead and police, right? So I think they've changed that a little bit. But the unions have never had, as far as I can tell, right, my whole entire history, like any kind of mortgage program, right? The thing, though, and I would say this to everybody, that even when I buy my own first house, I have one house. I don't have two. I own one home. I don't even own it yet, right? The mortgage company still got a little bit of it. But if I didn't have access to my annuity fund to be able to take out that money to put that down payment down, I would not be living in a house today. Or maybe it would have took me much longer to start living in a house, right? But because I had that access to that annuity fund as a unionized construction worker, that separated me from the rest of the pack, right? So when I laid that money down 25 years ago, I have enough in that fund to be able to put down as a down payment and do some closing costs to be able to get into our first house.
So no LiUNA mortgage program.
No LiUNA mortgage program. Okay. None that I know of. None. Zero.
None coming up ahead.
I don't think so. I mean, look, mortgages are.
Is that radical?
No. I mean, look.
To give mortgage loans out to members? I mean, wouldn't that help, get people wanting to be members?
I mean, yeah, I would say yes, right? But I just think the capitalization of that, right? Like, sometimes in unions we think we're the big dog on the block, right? And I got to remind myself of this sometimes too. Like, hey man, we think we're the big dog, right? We take a step back, man. We're representing 10% of the entire workforce in America belongs to a union, both public and private sector, right? So we can punch above our weight class, right? Don't get me wrong, we punch above our weight class pretty well. I mean, I think we get ourselves involved in places where we say, "Wow, how did the union get there?" But to do those really big grand things, you would need to get back to a place where America's representing 35% of workers across America, which, man, I hope I'm around for one day. And that's the goal, that we would rebuild this labor movement, that like 30 or 35% of workers from every single line of work across this country would belong to a union. That's where we can have real power to try to do some of those things that you're talking about.
It seems like that's the only solution to all of these societal problems that you're talking about, right? This wage gap, like all the money going to the same fucking spot.
It's true.
$100,000 being $50,000 now.
It's true. It's true.
The more, and the more, like, the bigger the membership grows, the more power we have, the more, and then the better the middle class does.
It's true. Listen,
I mean,
look.
It seems simple.
It's complicated.
We got to make momentum.
Listen, it's complicated because, I found in my own career in organizing workers, right, that a shit job is better than no job, right? And so when workers are faced with the proposition of something better, right? And me as a union organizer, I'm proposing something better by joining the union and collective bargaining and the power of that, and and all that brings to the table. The worker goes, "Oh man, am I really going to get that?" Right? And so you get that moment. But that's the job of a union organizer, to get people over that hurdle. But I've seen, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, like the transitional power that actually provides to a working person, I wouldn't believe it, right? Like, I can recall moments in my own career where I've gone into an industrialized situation and, man, people are poor. I mean, like working poor, right? Like they're getting like barely minimum wage. They're living, in apartments with 5-6 people living in the same apartment. They're walking to work or driving a bicycle to work, to getting a union contract. And all of a sudden, you know what? They got a car. All of a sudden they're like, you know what? I hate those people. I don't want to live with them no more. I want to go out on my own. And before you know it, they bought a house. And before you know it, they sent their kids to college. And literally their lives have been transformed because they decided to join a union and get collectively bargained wages. Look, the American people are bamboozled. And I say that all the time. They've been bamboozled by trickle-down economics, right? Literally about that if the rich get richer, somehow we'll survive in that proposition that, they have to get richer in order for us to get a wage. No, that's not true, right? There's a piece of labor history I love to tell people that people in the Netherlands wear shoes called what?
I'm not sure.
They call them clogs. Clogs, right? Clogs is the reference of the shoe. Okay. And you say, well, why are these shoes called clogs? And the time in history might be wrong, but the story is accurate, is that, say in the 1700s, people were working in some kind of manufacturing environment, and there was a water wheel that, moved an assembly line. And so every time the mill owner wanted a greater amount of assembly, right, or production, more water would go over the wheel, make the line go faster. But workers would take their shoes and would throw them into the wood gears to break the gears. Their shoes became known as clogs. See, working people have been fighting back against the system their whole entire lives, right? The origination of the word rednecks is not because you're from down south. It's because miners wore red neckerchiefs when they were marching over Blair Mountain in a standoff, really an armed standoff with the federal forces coming to the defense of other miners. And there was a New York Times reporter that dubbed them the rednecks. Right? So, like, our labor history is real in this country, but people don't recognize our labor history. They think that this is just the way it is. No, people have been standing up and fighting back against this machine of capitalism forever. And we got to get people to stand back up again across this whole entire country and fight back against this machine called capitalism to get our fair share out of capitalism.
They said in this this class I took for an election, you need 3 things to win. You need money, people, and time.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, they got all the money, dude, but
yeah,
we got all the people and all the time.
I mean, that's why we're making a difference. Look, that's why we're making a difference in Mikey Sherrill's campaign right now. Look, I would tell you that the numbers that I've heard so far about the work that we've done, it translates into votes for power to make her the governor. There is no doubt about that, right? And so while corporate interests can give big checks, you're right. People are the power. People are the things that go to ballots and go to boxes and vote. Money doesn't vote. Money persuades you. It's actually people that go and vote. So those conversations that we're having on those doors and really energizing that voter base to get out and vote, because here are the issues that we're all going to go to the polls and vote for. That's the power, right? And so when we get involved in these political elections, whether it be your local election, Randy's election, Mikey Sherrill's election, it's all about that we're bringing power to the equation, because we know that when you get into office and we helped you get into office, you don't forget who we are. And so when we come back to you with a set of ideas and a set of principles, a set of things to get done that we think is going to benefit our membership as a whole, you go to work about trying to get those done, because you know that your term in office is only going to last so long. You're going to have to come back to us at some point. And if we put you in office, well, then chances are we can take you out of office as well. So that's the power of people. That's why they want people, because we can put you in, but if we put you in, we might be able to take you out as well.
It's really like the solution to everything we're talking about is people.
Yeah, that's activism, right? I mean,
it's solidarity.
You can go through every single membership of every union. I don't care what their affiliation is. I don't care where they're at. Probably about 10% of union members across the country are participating in union affairs. Maybe a little bit more in some unions, but not much more. And so it's the 10% army that's really driving. But 10%, if you think about 10%, it's a couple of million people across the country that are standing up and fighting back and getting active in local elections, statewide elections, district elections, national elections, right? Look, and we had this big debate, right? You think about the last presidential election. Look, and you'll hear it time and time again, and people will go, nah, it's bullshit. Joe Biden did so much for union workers, union construction workers in particular. You're never going to see that kind of an assistance ever again from the United States president ever in your lifetime. That's how much work he had done. I had gone one time to a meeting at the White House, right, because of our influence in, Joe Biden's administration. We were down in Washington, D.C. for some, I think, National Bill and Trade's legislative meeting. And they had about 50 LiUNA officials over to the White House for cabinet level briefings, right? And so, Secretary of Transportation came in, the Secretary of Labor came in, the Energy Secretary came in, a couple other secretaries came in. These are cabinet people that came in, right? And they said to us, they go, look, you know what? Joe Biden has told each and every one of us that if there's $1 coming out of your department, your entity, that's going to be put to work, you have to look at that $1 through the eyes of a worker. End of story. Don't come to me with any policy proposals or any kind of initiatives if it's not going to benefit working people. Think about that for a second, right? It's not going to benefit working people. When you talk about the Infrastructure Act, right, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, you're talking about like $1.3 trillion. I'm going to say that with a T again, $1.3 trillion worth of work, 100% union bill and trades under the Biden administration. I couldn't guarantee that under the current administration, but under the Biden administration, that would have been 100% union building trades work across the country. When you talk about the CHIPS and Science Act, trillions of dollars, like $3 trillion worth of work coming out, 100% union building trades across the country. I can't guarantee that under the current administration. But billions and trillions of dollars of work opportunities came out of the Biden administration that were going to benefit union construction workers across the country. And we're never going to see that ever again. Matter of fact, right now what we're seeing this current administration take good union jobs off the table by suspending work all across this country.
Like Gateway, you were talking
like
about.
Gateway?
Yeah.
Gateway is at risk, right? Right now, the President of the United States has declared that the project is terminated. Nobody really understands what that means, but what it does mean for us is that potentially tens of thousands of good union jobs are no longer going to be going forward. When there are people working on that project right now on 3 sides of the river, there are people working in New York City, there are people working in the middle of the Hudson River, and there are people working on the Jersey side, both in Weehawken and Hoboken, building both the portal and the shaft, getting ready to start doing tunnel boring work out of New Jersey into New York. And all of those jobs and that whole entire project's at risk because the current administration said it's terminated. Now, I don't know how you terminate something that's fully funded. Talking about that project is a $16 billion project by itself, 100% union bill and trades for the whole entire duration of the project. It's now on the line. There is billions of dollars worth of energy work that's happening all across this country that's been suspended by this current administration. Gone. They just took it off the books. They said, we're not doing it. It's woke work. It's green energy scam work. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're building a Walmart today and a windmill tomorrow. As long as we're going to work to build those projects, I don't care what we're building. But when you go back a little bit before, like, who's going to get impacted by the climate is going to be working people, right? I couldn't build a house big enough off the sand to stop the power of the ocean from overriding it, but a rich person can build that house 50 stories off the sand, so when the sea levels are raising, the water will never hit their home, but all of our homes on the coast are going to get inundated with water, and we're going to have to move further and further and further and further away, or higher and higher and higher, further away from work opportunities, but also we're going to be putting up with the impacts of the climate. So you start thinking about all this thing. Who's really getting hosed here? American working people are getting hosed from coast to coast. So when I say they've been bamboozled, man. Like in the worst way possible, that if we want to have a sustainable middle class where everybody is thriving in it, good jobs are part of that equation. You don't get there without good union jobs. And so all these tens of thousands of good union jobs that are on the table now, that have been taken off the table from this administration, is completely un-American and not an American first agenda. It literally goes against everything that this administration said it was going to do for working people. It's literally a slap in the face. But yes, let's pay attention to transgender bathrooms and kids playing sports and whatever else. Owning guns. I have enough firearms in my house that if you made it to my house and we had a conflict, we're going to have a Mexican standoff that day. We're going to find out who wins that one. I'm in favor of you owning guns, but that don't put food on my table. Guns don't put food on my table. You know what? Good policy puts food on my table. Think about here in the state of New Jersey that when the Transportation Trust Fund needed to be refunded here, which equates to $10 billion in union infrastructure work here in the state of New Jersey, 100% union, over the next 5 years, the current governor, called upon one union to work with to get it through the legislature here and get it approved, to refund it. He called the laborers union. We got it done in 13 days, and we added $10 billion worth of work opportunities to that infrastructure bank here in the state of New Jersey. Who's that benefit? That benefits our members. That benefits a guy like you. That benefits other people that are waiting to go to work or currently at work, that they now have more work to go to because there's a bank of money, $10 billion, that's going to put our members to work. See, that's what makes the middle class, not all these other little stupid social issues that people are paying attention to. And if they wanted to have that debate with me, I'd sit down all day long and have that debate with them and tell me how that policy versus good economic policy benefits you and keeps food on your table when these policies are proven to keep food on our table. That's the difference.
That's a strong message. I think I really hope a lot of people get the opportunity to listen to you say all of this.
Me too. I mean, listen, I talk to myself all day long, right? I mean, like, you know, so, I mean, no, I mean, look, I get it. And when I say I get it, man. When I say, look, when I tell you that I'm a born again, Jesus loving Christian, I can get conflicted about what's going on in society, without a doubt. Man, I have my own opinions about what's going on in society, and I do, but I don't let those opinions gravitate into what keeps me in the middle class. You know what keeps me in the middle class? A good job keeps me in the middle class. A good union job keeps me in the middle class. What am I working for, man? I'm working for a sound, secure retirement at the end of my life, because at some point I'm going to get old and I'm going to need a source of income to survive and just have dignity in my life. These social issues aren't going to be able to provide that to me. It's good economic policy that's going to be good union jobs, more union jobs, more. With matter of fact, there isn't enough union jobs that anybody in power they could create. So for every job that they create, right, as a union that's in the development business, and that's really what we're in. If you think about it, right, the labor's union, right, we build things. We're in the development business. So we know that economic development spurs more economic development. Like you build a highway somewhere, you'll build a mall there, you'll build a school, you'll build a firehouse, you'll build a hospital, you build a community. You're done there, we go over here. You need infrastructure work. The tunnels, you need the tunnels that we're replacing is two 110-year-old tunnels that if they fail, listen, if they fail, 20 to 25% of the country's GDP will be impacted by it. Think about that for a second, outrageous. Right? Like that's what we're putting at risk because of some, political fights that they're having in Washington, D.C., but that doesn't put food on my table locally. So I think people just have to take a step back and look, everybody's entitled to have their political opinion, right? And I mean that as a veteran of this country, right? As somebody who served this country, wore the uniform, who literally proudly, man, honorably discharged, like literally loved this country, fly the American flag in front of my house every single day. I consider myself a patriot, right? But you're allowed to feel whichever way you want to feel. You're allowed. I mean, I say about freedom, man, it should be so ugly that it should offend me every single day of the week. That's how free you should be as somebody. That's real freedom. So all these issues that they have us debating about, they're winning. The other side, whoever the other side is winning every day to keep us divided. They win. They win another day. And it takes us more days to figure out how we get back together again. So when you talk about solidarity, we got to find things that we have in common with each other, not the things that we don't have in common with each other. Like if we have things in common with each other that say, hey, look, I'm in favor of good wages. Hey, man, let that be the thing that we gravitate towards around one another, right? If we say, hey, man, you know what? I'm in favor of a sound retirement system. Let that be the thing that we gravitate around. I'm in favor of having good health insurance. Let us gravitate around those things and saying that's the thing that keeps us together. That's the bond. If you go to church, anybody who goes to church, and I don't care what faith life people live, but if they go to a church, there are people in the church that you hate. You cannot wait to leave their presence. You went there because you all had something in common to get there that day. But once that moment is over, you all go back out. But during that moment, there's nobody that could step into that environment and get you guys to disagree about why you're all there. And the same thing for us in the union. We got to get people back to the place about the things that we have in common with one another and not the things that keep us separated from each other. Because they're easy, they're manufactured, they're man-made, they're worthless. They do nothing to give us the things that we go to work for every single day. Zero. And if somebody would say to me, no, but they do it, I would listen to that other person and they would have to prove it to me and get me to think otherwise, that these social issues impact my ability to be in the middle class. They don't. They're so far disconnected from one another, but what do you hear on the media all day long? The social issues, the social issues, the social issues. You don't hear nothing about working people. You don't hear nothing about us. Social issues. So when I get to a job site, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the social issues. I'm talking about what clan do I belong to, right? What tribe am I in? I'm not talking about, hey, man, next contract's coming up. What do we want? What are we starting to talk about that we think we need in the next contract, right, as a group of workers, because we know that this contract's expiring and we're going to be able to get a new contract, right? So, right, but we're not having that conversation. No, we're having this conversation about whether some transgender bathroom in Utah impacts me here in New Jersey. And it doesn't.
Are you doing anything with the, I know like the apprenticeship program, they have like a bunch of required classes. Are you doing anything that sends this kind of message starting then?
Yeah, I mean,
there's people that are like way beyond.
With our RISE program, so here in the Eastern region, right, we run our RISE program, and our RISE program is really caught in fire across the international, right? I mean, different regions, the international itself are impressed with the education program that we've developed here in the Eastern region. And we've been at it for 20 somewhat years, and it's evolved over 20 years, but it's a program that at least apprentices get the first level of it as part of their apprenticeship training. And it really gives them the history of the union, right? It gives them the history of the labor movement, gives them a little bit of history about where we came from. But I would also say this about activists, anybody that I give education to, if I give you education about somebody, I don't do nothing with you. I've kind of lost you because I'm not doing something with you. But if I keep you close and I keep you engaged and I keep you active, chances are that you're going to become a really good, strong, smart activist at the end of the day who can go out and have this debate with others, right? So if you think about an army of people, like when we did Count Me In for a second, right? I'll just go back to a campaign. Count Me In was about a developer by the name of Related, and Steve Ross owns the Miami Dolphins. So I just want you to understand who we're going up against. A very powerful billionaire in New York City who had just got done building or is in the process of building a $14 billion, 100% union building trades project, multiple buildings on the west side of Manhattan, right? I mean, I'm talking about state-of-the-art stuff, right? $14 billion worth of work. And then he had 2 buildings right outside the fence line of this project labor agreement, this project under a PLA, that he was going to build open shop. And so the first one went open shop, and we kind of were like, you know what? But the second one, we decided, no, we're going to have to fight this guy out. And Count Me In was the thing that was birthed out of deciding that we were going to fight this out. And the Count Me In meant, oh, man, you can count me in for the fight. Like, I know what's at stake. See, every worker had an education that we were giving them on a picket line or giving them at a rally or giving them hand-to-hand combat that, hey, man, this is why we're here today. We're here because this guy, this developer, is going to build this thing open shop. And one of us or some of us are going to pay the price. But if we allow him to get away with doing it to one of us, he's going to do it to all of us. And people understood that. Like, we were all in the same boat here at the end of the day. So, yeah, my trade could be good. Well, no, man, that means that I got to fight with you guys because if you're not good, that means the next time I'm not good, right? And so that's how solidarity is really built, that you give people the opportunity to understand what it is that we're fighting for and allow them to have their say in it, right? Because you just can't dictate things to people. You got to let them have their say. But then you start building this community of interest and people say, oh, you know what? You can count me in. And we would get out there, man, we would just yell, count me in. Count me in, guy, count you in, guy, count me in, right? So when you get thousands of workers doing that, that's a lot of power, man. A lot of power, right? And, look, it doesn't work out for us. It collapses under its own weight because of treachery, other crafts throwing the towel in and making a deal with the developer and really cutting away our solidarity. And you know what? We all paid the price for it. You go into New York City today, and I'm not ashamed to say it, New York City building construction is an open shop environment today if it's not a prevailing wage project labor agreement project in New York City. So if it's a private sector job, we're fighting for that. Every single project we have to fight for. Beforehand, we used to get them more often than we're getting them now, but we're fighting it out, and we're still, we're holding our water. Don't get me wrong; they haven't been able to steamroll us, but the fact that we now have to fight for it all because we gave up all our power that way, that's a little bit disheartening.
So, I mean, this AI thing kind of sounds kind of stupid next to that, but I mean,
look,
I'm gonna hit it right. Amazon laid off 14,000 workers due to AI innovations. I had the opportunity to talk to Brent Booker a couple of months ago, who said that look, we know it's on our radar. And we are going to incorporate it into what we got going on. And then, you see things like the tiny surveyor, right? Going right through the road and surveying the road. And, you see things like these driverless freight trucks going through Texas. I mean, how long is it going to be before that tiny surveyor can upload its data into a mill machine or a paving machine? And then that mill machine and paving machine can do its job with pinpoint accuracy, and you don't need a guy on a sensor anymore. You don't need an operator anymore. You don't need. Man,
that's a question that probably keeps people up at nighttime, right? I think that for me, the idea that we'll adapt with technology is not something in the labor union that we're afraid of, right? Mm-hmm. I think we've adopted the technology, whether it be a remote control operation of a trench machine or something, whatever that is, right? So I think we can adapt to technology, but when you start talking about artificial intelligence, it's such a powerful proposition, right? You're literally saying you're going to take my human intelligence and make it artificial. Yeah. I'd be aware of that. I wouldn't take my intelligence, but anyway, you take somebody's intelligence and make it, artificial to do things that human beings would normally do. Look, corporations like Amazon, I think, are always going to look like, how do I maximize profits? And as soon as I can get rid of people and picking and packing, and essentially that's what a warehouse worker does for Amazon, is pick a package and put it on a truck and pack a package and put it on a truck. It's really called a picking and packing operation. And then Amazon, being wealthy enough to make the economic investment for the AI technology, right? Yeah, they're going to do that. But I would say to you that in my estimation, it's a long time off. It's 25, 30 years off. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but it's 25, 30 years off. But there'll be fights that will be happening along the way to try to manage the impact that AI will have, right? Look, if you really start thinking about global economics and really taking a look at that, look, there are some countries that are starting to think about mandatory monthly minimum incomes, right? And starting to think about, like, what does it take for people to receive an income not to have to go to work? And some European countries are actually starting to think about that. They're not doing it yet, but they've been some studies in Europe that, hey, look, maybe we don't need you to go to a workplace every day, right? Maybe we only need you to go there 1 day a week because AI is going to do it 4 days a week. But what are you going to need is a minimum monthly income to survive, to pay your rent, put food, whatever that is. And, it's a societal issue, right? That again, but come back to what we've been talking about for the last hour or so, is that how is worker solidarity going to play into that? Like, if workers stand up and say, we're not going to teach the fucking AI what to do. I mean, right? Think about that for a second. Maybe AI doesn't get there because, you know what? We didn't teach it what to do. But if we're going to be the sheeps in the slaughterhouse that are just going to go, without a fight, yeah, man, it might get the best of us at some point in our lives. Hopefully, look, you're a little younger than me. I'm a little older than you. And, my kids are going to be impacted, right? My third generation laborer who's, 5-6 years into the trade is going to be impacted by AI. There's no question about that, right? But I would also say that the scale of it has to be, only the rich and powerful are going to be able to use it because of the upfront investment that they're going to have. I think about it in the picking fields right now, right? Think about, like, we have this, right, wrong, or indifferent, but we have this really assault or this position in America to get rid of every undocumented worker in this country, right? Every undocumented immigrant. I call them workers because most of them are working people. But who's going to replace those people? Like, who's going to replace the guy that's picking the oranges in the orange grove, right? Are the orange grove farmers rich enough to buy the AI equipment to not have human beings pick the oranges, right? I'm not sure. So I think about that. Can Amazon, build a whole entire factory and put robots in it with AI and use all the technology with drones and everything else that they've been experimenting with and say, hey, this is going to be out? Yeah, they have enough capital to do that, right? When you talk about the guy who, Jeff Bezos, right? Like, again, he's a 0.1% of the population controlling 93% of the wealth. So yeah, if there's going to be a fight, and I always wished for that I would be here for the worker revolution. I really mean that. When I say that, like, I've always wished that when workers decide to stand up and fight back, man, I want to be here for that moment, that day. I really do. And not to be a leader. I want to see the raw power that working people, that I know that they have, but they're using it to make sure that they're not getting steamrolled by the system that they're working in. And so, AI is complicated. I think some of it will make its way into the construction field. I think that we'll be the ones that's going to maintain that AI. As we've always been, the most competitive, most productive, most skilled worker on a job site, in my opinion, is a laborer. Every other craft guy could say they're the guy. I know we are, right? Jobs don't happen start to finish without us being on a job site. So, as that technology rolls out, contractors will have to make the choice which workforce they want to train. And hopefully we're the ones that get trained in that, and we're the ones that's doing it, right? So even if you use, like, 3D printing, right? Concrete printing. We've done some training with some of the manufacturers of those printing systems. We know you need about 10 people on that device in order to print that house. And we want the laborers to be the 10 people, everybody from running the computer to doing the layout to doing all the finish work. If that's the way that this industry is going, then we want to make sure that we're positioned to be on those job sites as well.
Yeah, you want it to enhance the worker, not replace them.
Not replace us. No. Unless you're going to, and listen, you want to pay me like $100,000 a year to sit at home. I'm not saying I want that, right? I like working. I like getting up every day and being productive in my life. But if you wanted to pay me $100,000 a year and you're taking care of all my obligations and I get to live a great life and play, what's that thing?
Pickleball?
Yeah, pickleball all day long. Yeah, then, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying I would do it, but maybe. But no, I think that it should enhance us, not to replace us, I think is the right way to go forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if like you said, like if those Amazon workers just staring down the barrel of 14,000 layoffs, if that doesn't make it easier to organize a company like Amazon, like look what's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, even people in high-paying positions are not extremely safe.
No.
Because if he could get rid of them, he'll get rid of them too.
That's right.
And it'll be one guy at the top making all the money. And it's like, at what point, at what level do people say, like, whoa, like, stop it right here?
It's almost like being on the Titanic, right? Everybody on the upper level of the Titanic thought they were going to be able to, withstand the sinking of the ship at the end of the day, right? And, but everybody got consumed by the water, right? Everybody drowned. Everybody got thrown into the water. It didn't matter which level of the Titanic you were on. That's the thing I always find fascinating about working people, right? That I don't care what part of the food chain you're in. We're all on the same ship at the end of the day. So whether you're in the upper cabin of the cruise liner, and I'm at the bottom of the cruise line, we're all still on the same ship, to your point. We're not the guy that's got all the capital. We're all working for the capital, right? So, yeah, I think that it's going to be those moments where working people stand up. Look, Amazon workers in New York have tried to figure out how to organize, right? Right now, they're in the midst of trying to get a first contract. They affiliated with the Teamsters Union. The Teamsters said they're going to take on Amazon. They've been having little skirmishes with them across the country, especially more on the trucking end, not so much on the the warehouse end, but they represent warehouse workers as well. And so, let's see what the Teamsters Union can do. But I would say to you that unless there is a move of solidarity from working people in general to come to the aid of those Amazon workers and say, no, Amazon will do whatever it wants to do, right? It's no different than, auto manufacturers have been able to figure out how do we, mechanize and modernize our production operation with less auto workers. And so today there's less auto workers than there were 50 years ago, just because of the modernization of a plant. So automation definitely has its pluses, has more minuses than it does pluses. There's no doubt about it, because for every time you automate, you replace one worker with a machine, but that worker doesn't benefit. So again, working people have to figure out, union and non-union, about how do we figure out what's that line of solidarity, get rid of them social issues. For a second. I'm not suggesting don't pay attention to them. Like, that's not what I'm saying to folks. Like, but do not let that be, in my opinion, the thing that makes you make economic decisions. Because that's what we're doing. And they're winning. They're winning every day when we do that. They're winning. Like, you know what? Like, okay, I got my guns. All right, okay, but what do I got to do? Shoot my neighbor to eat? No, man. Like, I don't want to live in that kind of society. So if we can get away from that a little bit and get back to what our true solidarity is that, old school labor saying is that a dollar cannot make another dollar onto itself. You need working people to do that. Mm-hmm. I could put $1 on the table. It's not going to reproduce itself unless I put labor behind the dollar. So when working people can get back to a place and they understand that about capital, that capital cannot generate capital on itself unless there's workers involved, you understand we have power in the equation to begin with. And now we got to figure out about how we use that power for our own purpose, right? For our own benefit. And when we do that, we'll have a more equitable and better society so that even your kids' kids would benefit from that society.
Mike, it pains me to do this, man. It pains me to wrap this up, man, because I love talking to you.
That's great, man. I had a great time. I did.
I think you got just the strongest message. I hope, like I said before, I hope everyone gets a chance.
Well, I'll tell you what. Once it's out, we'll put it on our social media channels out here too. So we'll try to make sure we get a good.
I think it's an important thing for a lot of people to hear. I really
man. Listen, and look, let me wrap it up by this way. On my point, right? Like all the people I work with here in the Eastern region, right? From every business manager of every local union, and every conversation that I've had, what I said, we have very much in common. I'm not saying nothing that nobody that's in a level of leadership here doesn't have in common with me, right? People go about their leadership a little bit different. That's what makes us unique individuals. But I think that we're all pushing for the same agenda. And the same agenda is to make sure that our union is prospering. And if our union is prospering, that means our members are prospering. So all the decisions that we're making and all the things that we're trying to deal with every single day, and they're coming at us, man, in really rapid form sometimes, we're really just trying to make those decisions in a way so that our members can benefit. And if there's something that's going to impact us, that we're being able to block that impact so that our members still benefit, right? Because one thing about us is that we're a family here in LiUNA. And so, you know, I get to say I represent 45,000 people. I get to represent 45,000 of my brothers and sisters. And I take that brothers and sisters stuff pretty seriously. So, you know what? I'm happy to be here. I really am. It's my 3rd anniversary as being the regional manager here, man. I'm super happy here. I think we've done good work in the last 3 years. I'm excited about the next 3 years and beyond that about what we're going to do. And, man, I'm looking forward to it. And I always say this. I'm going to end it with this. If they want to take this from me, I don't mean regional manager stuff, but they want to take my way of life from me, man, they better be prepared to fight me for it, because I understand all the people that came before me to give me an opportunity to live the life that I had today wasn't by chance. It's because somebody else did something that I benefited from. And that's what happens in unions. Somebody before me, man, put it on the line for me to be here today so that I can put it on the line for the next guy to be here. Whether I meet him or not, I hope he benefits from our union 25 years down the road, that they're having a similar conversation and they say the same thing. Hey, man, some guy put it on the line before me. That's why I'm putting it on the line today. So if we do that, man, I think we're going to be okay. And we know what? We'll fight this fight out and we'll be all dancing in the... I always like to say, man, listen, I'll meet you in the end zone and we'll celebrate together the victory together when we spike the ball, man. That's the way I look at it.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much for your time, Mike.
All right, man. Good stuff.
All right,
Thank
man.
you.
See you.
Thank you, bro.